Okay, so we're talking about compassion fatigue and burnout. I think that, like I was saying just a minute ago, a lot of these things they get conflated. We use all of these terms, and so a lot of times they get conflated, they get used interchangeably, and they're not the same thing. So I think about a month ago, I did a live on vicarious and secondary trauma and really talking about the experience that a lot of us have around the aftermath and the effects of either being in a role or in a position where you are either experiencing a lot of trauma yourself, or you are hearing about a lot of trauma from other humans, or you are holding space for somebody who has been through a lot, or you're in relationship with somebody who has been through a lot of these things. So whether it's a professional thing where you are actively in traumatic situations, or you are listening to people as they are processing through, and you are guiding people as they are processing through traumatic situations, or maybe you're in an intimate relationship or a close relationship with a human who's been through a lot of trauma, and so you're providing space and support for them. All of those are vicarious and secondary trauma. And when it comes to compassion fatigue is one of the aftermaths that occur with vicarious and secondary trauma. Compassion fatigue is a symptom of vicarious and secondary trauma. Burnout, on the other hand, burnout is a symptom, is a result of something a little bit different, of something that it can be a little bit more generalized, a little bit bigger. So I want to talk about compassion fatigue, and then I want to have a conversation about burnout because they are different. So compassion fatigue can be also a symptom of burnout. Like that can be one of the things that we see in burnout. So compassion fatigue itself is really what it sounds like. It's basically where I get tired of caring. It becomes emotionally, physically, mentally too laborious for me to care about your experience. It becomes too much or overwhelming for me to stay attuned, which in the trauma world, the word attunement means that I am able to give you my intentional focus, my undivided attention, and my unconditional acceptance. So if I am experiencing compassion fatigue, it becomes very, very hard for me to give you my undivided attention because my brain is just like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. This is too much. It's all too much. And it becomes really hard for me to not stay connected and give you acceptance and create safety and love and belonging for you as the individual who has just gone through this hard thing. I used to really see compassion fatigue as I would experience compassion fatigue in my role as a nurse and in my role as a nurse practitioner. And one of the big places that I would experience this, one of the ways that this would manifest in my life is that I would work all night. I would take care of these very critically ill people. I would put my body in situations that did not optimize it for health, right? I would be exhausted. I wouldn't eat, or I would eat things that weren't really nourishing or fueling for me. I wouldn't drink enough water. I would, not have any downtime. I'd be in these very stressful situations, both physically, emotionally, and mentally. And then I would come home and I would be trying to take care of my kids, or I would be trying to, my husband would be like, hey, this was really rough, or this was really hard. Or my family would be like, hey, it's your day off. Like, we really want to tell you about what's going on over here, over there. And I just couldn't. And I would come across as this very uncaring, like lack of, like this human that just had a total lack of empathy. And in reality, that's not what it was. It wasn't what it was at all. Like I wanted to care about my kids and their problems. I wanted to care about my husband and what he was going through. I wanted to care about my extended family. I wanted to care about my friends. I wanted to care about these things. I just couldn't. There wasn't a capacity for it. And so something really interesting happened when I decided that I wanted to leave my my job as an educator and as a nurse practitioner at the bedside and become a coach, and then start the Institute for Trauma and Psychological Safety. Right? I left this very, very traumatic place and did a lot of my own healing and a lot of my own processing and a lot of my own recuperation, and then went back into a pretty trauma-focused place. And while now the focus is so much more on empowerment, and it's on ensuring that we are taking care of ourselves and we are ensuring that our physical needs and our mental needs and our emotional needs are met, one of the things that I found, and something that I was actually suffering from, and I hate to use that term, something that I was experiencing recently, was I was starting to have some compassion fatigue and I was starting to have some burnout. We'll talk about some other symptoms of burnout in a second. I was starting to have compassion fatigue and burnout. Like I was noticing that I was having a hard time. So one of the things that happened for me when I went through and really like recovered and did a lot of my own processing work around all of the trauma that I held and saw and participated in as a nurse practitioner and earlier on in my life, as I really worked through that over the year after I left, I started noticing my empathy was coming back. Like I could, like my clients would say things and I would like end up like tearing up with them on calls. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. Like, why am I crying with my clients? Like there's something wrong. And then I had a friend be like, no, there's nothing wrong. Your empathy is back, Lee. Like, that's a really good thing. It's a good thing you are feeling what the people across from you are telling you. That's awesome. And what I noticed is that my business grew relatively quickly. When we started the Institute in September, we, by January, had 40 plus clients. You know, there is a staff, I shouldn't say staff, we have independent contractors that work for us at the Institute. We have 12 humans that we work with now. My husband came into the business. My sister came into the business and this idea of holding space for people became like this whole big entity. And what I noticed was that a lot of the things that I learned, a lot of the things that were modeled for me over in the hospital setting and in the academic setting, I started bringing into my business. And so the last few months have been a really interesting experience for me of, how do I continue to grow this business and ensure that I don't get burned out? We'll talk about, ensure that I don't have compassion fatigue, because the humans that are sitting across from me, they matter and their stories matter, and they deserve an experience with a human who has the capacity to hold them and who is taking care of themselves in a way and boundarying their own work, boundarying, I don't know, setting boundaries around their own work and around their own time off and around their own health and around their own healing and their own intimate relationships and what they need. And so this has been the evolution for me over the last few months. And it's a portal that I'm still kind of going through right now, is really recognizing, what do I need as a business owner, mentally, emotionally, physically, as a coach, in order, and as a provider, in order to be able to give people what it is that I've said I'm going to give them, in order to have that integrity, and also to be able to meet them with attunement. One of the biggest signs of compassion fatigue is we stop being able to put ourselves in the shoes of the other person. We stop being able to put ourselves in the shoes of the other person. We lose our empathy. We lose our ability to understand how this person is feeling. And a lot of times we end up having, and this is going into burnout, right? So burnout, I have my little notes here. Burnout definition: feelings of energy depletion and exhaustion around your work. decreased professional productivity, and increased mental distance and or feelings towards your job and career. So you can see how compassion fatigue is a part of this, right? Feelings of energy depletion and exhaustion around work. Okay, like I feel like this job is draining me. And if it's draining me and it's not pouring back into me, then I'm probably going to have some compassion fatigue because it's really hard to care about people when you don't have the energy to care about people. The increased mental distance piece, or increased distance or feelings towards my job and my career. If I am feeling less connected with my career and I'm feeling less connected with the work that I am doing and the purpose and the mission, it's going to be a lot harder to care about the humans that I'm caring for, that I'm charged with caring for. And then the decreased professional productivity. I see this a lot. A lot of business owners who come to me or professionals who come to me, they're like, Lee, I had all these dreams, these ambitions and these aspirations, and there's like so much stuff that I want to do. And I just like I can't even right now. Like I just can't. That's burnout. And that's actually what I started experiencing and luckily caught it very quickly. And I think it's so funny that this was the chat today, because over the last month, I realized, oh, I've got some compassion fatigue going on. I've got some burnout going on. These things that I was super excited to launch at the beginning of the year, I'm like not excited to launch these right now. And that's weird because I really love my business and I really love like connecting with and caring for and supporting the humans who decide to invest in my business and the work that we're going to do together. So something's off here. And for me, noticing these signs of burnout, for a lot of us, we catch burnout too late. We catch burnout, and I don't want to say too late, it's never too late, but we catch burnout later in the process than is helpful for us to catch it, because a lot of burnout has been normalized and a lot of compassion fatigue has been normalized. If you're in the healthcare system, you are somebody who is in corporate, like we normalize this. We joke about this. We joke about not being empathetic to your customers and having like the PITA customers, the pain in the customers, right? We joke about having difficult patients. We joke about how hard work is. One of the things we used to say is, well, we laugh so we don't cry. Is it that wrong to cry? Maybe we shouldn't laugh and make jokes about things that are actually like really serious and really painful for us because we don't feel like we have the ability to like process it. So we're just making jokes. The thing of it is that we oftentimes don't recognize compassion fatigue and recognize burnout until like one of our commenters is saying here, our bodies are like, absolutely not. We get sick, we get injured, we have a mental break or a mental health episode where it's like our body says no more. And so one of my goals at the Institute is it's an internal goal and it's also an external goal. It's that when I start to feel compassion fatigue or I start to feel burnout, that I catch that as quickly as possible. We've got some boundaries that we've set up to make it harder for me to have compassion fatigue and burnout, because I'm ensuring that my physical, mental, emotional, spiritual needs are met. And we also have boundaries set up so that other humans who come into our spaces and into our programs don't get compassion fatigue and don't get burnout from us. Because the thing of it is if you're coming into our programs and you're learning about trauma and you're learning about all of this stuff, like that can feel activating, that can feel triggering. You can start to have burnout. You can start to have like, I don't want to participate in this anymore. So ensuring that people have the support and the attunement that they need coming in, and making sure that we as a team have what we need, and I as the leader have what I need in order to be able to be attuned and care and have empathy for the humans who join our programs. And so this is one of the things that we are weaving into our entrepreneurial mini mind. If you've heard me talk about the ITPS mini mind, it's for entrepreneurs, business owners, humans who really want to create safe and supportive businesses for themselves and for others. One of the core things that gets woven in through the 8 core business areas that we're talking about, is this idea of how do we set this up? How do we boundary this so that you get what you need, your people get what they need, and we can avoid compassion fatigue and burnout? How do we set up your business structure and organization so that you don't experience burnout? So that you don't go, oh, nope, I'm not launching anything else for the rest of the year. I just can't. But you're also like, I need to make money, and not making money feels stressful. So this is something that whether you're a business owner, and we, if you're interested in the mini mind, we still have a couple spots for that. But whether that's what you're doing or not, whether you come into the mini mind to help set up your business that way, or you're not a business owner and you are somebody in a role that has a lot of compassion fatigue, or you're somebody who's experiencing burnout, all of these things, my invitation to you is to look at boundaries. Like, where are you continuing to overgive when you really don't have enough left? Where are you saying, oh, you know what? I want to make sure that I'm fueling my body with really great foods, and I'm drinking water, and I'm exercising, and I'm meditating, and I'm journaling, and I'm reading, and I'm having fun, and I'm doing all of these things that bring me joy, that fill me back up, that help me feel good. I'm going to therapy where I can dump out all of this stuff to someone else and have them hold it for me for an hour, or I'm hiring a coach who is able to hold that space for me. Whatever it is, you have all of these things of like, wow, this would feel really restorative. This would feel really replenishing. This would feel really good. Are you holding the boundaries around that? When work asks you to work an extra 4 hours because all of your coworkers will be short if you don't, are you holding the boundaries around that? And that in itself can create some dilemmas. I remember this. I remember that experience of like, I'm so tired. I've worked a 12-hour shift. And if I don't stay and help work this 16-hour shift, if I don't stay for an extra 4 hours, my coworkers are going to work short. These patients are going to be in danger, yada, yada, yada. And this is what the systems do. This is what a lot of the systems do, that systems that foster compassion fatigue and burnout are not well boundaried. I'm going to say that again. Systems that foster compassion fatigue and burnout are not well boundaried systems. And so since they're not well boundaried systems, they're going to encourage you to not have good boundaries. They're going to violate your boundaries. They're going to push your boundaries. They're going to ask you to get rid of your boundaries. And so one of the best things that we can do if we are staying in these systems and we're not leaving these systems is to hold our own boundaries. And if that makes us look difficult, or that makes us look whatever, that is what we get to do the work around doing to ensure that we are good. And especially if we are in positions of leadership, encouraging our people to hold their own boundaries is fabulous. One of the things that we do on our team, that Sarah, our director of ops, which a lot of you know her, she tells me when she's taking vacation. I'm not her boss. She's an independent contractor. She gets to say, hey, Lee, this is when I'm going on vacation, even if it's in the middle of one of your launches, even if it's in this or that. And what we always do is we look at, okay, how do we let this work? What do we need to have done beforehand? What can be done after? Hi, Sarah. What are we going to do after? Like, what does the business need? How can we make sure that the business is supported while you're going and doing your thing? And also, like, please go and do your thing. And in fact, if I see you working when you're supposed to be on vacation, I'm going to send you like a little, like, what are you doing? Get off of the computer, go away. That's one of the things that's really important for us from a team perspective. And it's something that I'm learning too, is we'll do this thing where we're off and we say, we'll like send a message and we say, don't read this. Don't read this. And so if that pops up and they haven't deleted Voxer from their phone, or one of us is, sees it, we know, like, okay, the other person is saying, I just need to share this with you. And also don't read this right now because it does not pertain to what you were doing at this moment. We delete apps off of our phones. One of the things that I've done for burnout and compassion fatigue is I post on Facebook in the morning and then I delete the app. And Instagram's funny for me. I can tell that I don't really like Instagram because at the end of the day, I like re-download Facebook, but at the end of the night, I oftentimes do not re-download Instagram. Like, I could care less, which just shows me that's not one of the spaces that I really like to be. And that's part of the compassion fatigue and the burnout is, especially if you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, like, where are you telling yourself you have to show up? This is one of the things we're looking at in the mini mind. Where are you feeling like you have to market a message and you're like, you don't actually have to be there? Where are you saying this is how I have to show up, or this is where I'm expected to show up, or this is what is expected of me from the system, from society, from whomever? And in reality, that whatever that expectation or ask is of you is like sucking your empathy out of you. It's sucking your energy out of you. It is burning you out. And so there's only so long you're going to be able to participate in that before you're just like, I'm out, I'm done. And this is just a personal opinion, but I would so much rather show up consistently and decrease the amount of access to me, or decrease the amount that I am giving, or decrease whatever, and be able to consistently show up than to go all in and overgive and over provide and all of those things, and then experience compassion fatigue, experience burnout, distance myself from my clients, distance myself from my business, distance myself from all these things, get sick, get really tired, have some mental stuff go on, and everything just come to a grinding halt. And so this is why we're focusing on this in the mini mind about your structure and organization, is because if you can choose a structure and an organization for your business, for how you show up and where you show up and when you show up and with whom you show up, if you can do that and you can create something that feels consistently good for you, where it's cool if you don't show up for a day or two, that's fine. Or like if you are really sick, you can cancel things, you can move things around, you can do this stuff. If you can create a structure like this and an organization like this for yourself, and some values and some standards and some boundaries, it's going to be much harder for you to burn out. It's going to be much harder for you to experience compassion fatigue. And then when you do, you're not going to have to like massively pull back. Instead, you're going to kind of do what I did last month and go like, hold on a second. We're not exercising every morning anymore. That gets to be put in here. We're not doing the things that we know really help us. So like, instead of pulling back, actually all of this is fine. We just need to make sure that we're pouring into ourselves and we're really taking time off, and we are unplugging and disconnecting and connecting with other humans in ways that we're just friends, or we're just family, and we're not coaches or leaders. Like, that's what we need. We need to like come back home to ourselves and give ourselves what we need so that we can then pour out to others. Like, if you can catch yourself, if you can boundary the situation and do some like preventative, proactive work around compassion fatigue and burnout. And then also, if you've got some early warning systems to check, like when that is starting to happen, when that is starting to occur, and you catch it, then you already have a plan of like, oh, I know what's going on here. I said I was only going to work these 3 days. I've started working Fridays again. Nope, that's not working. We need to well boundary that again. Also, I have stopped doing my daily exercise. So let's get back to like 3 times a week with that and see how that goes and see how we feel. And then, so let's implement those 2 changes. Let's see how it goes. One of the things, the last things I'll share around this is, for me, what I've realized is that I am an extrovert to a point, but I actually need a lot of recharge time on my own. One of the things I had in my old role as a nurse practitioner was I had my own office that I didn't share with anyone else. And I would have like an hour or 2 at a time some nights where nobody paged me, nobody called me, nobody bothered me. And so I had recharge time. I had time where I could just sit and do my work and not be interrupted. I got a lot of solo time at that job. And so when I left that job and all of a sudden I was like at home, what I realized was that I needed an office because I needed solo time. And then as I started working less and less and less, that office expense just really didn't make a lot of sense for me. So I gave it up in June or May, end of May. And over the last 7 to 8 weeks, what I've realized is, oh, wow, that office was helpful, not just from a work perspective, but from a solo time perspective. And so being at home with my husband and 3 kids all the time, or going to my co-working space, but not having a place where I could shut the door. I'm now in the room with everyone else. I really started noticing, oh, I'm getting burned out. My sensory processing disorder is getting worse. My auditory processing is just wonky right now. My stress levels are higher. I'm looking for ways to escape. I need some quiet time. I need some alone time. And one of the things that I used to do or my husband and I did during the pandemic was, when we felt like it was safe enough to do so, we were doing quarterly hotel weekends where I would go to a hotel for a night and he would go to a hotel for the next night. And we would each have 24 hours alone. And I looked at TLC, my husband, earlier in the week. I think it was on Saturday or Sunday. And I was like, dude, a hotel night, like I need one. And so we looked at the schedule and he's like, yeah, go Wednesday night, like use the points. It's fine. And all week already, I can feel that difference of like, also 2 of our kids are away at camp right now. And as much as I love their little butts, like it's quieter here. There's a little more solo time. My husband and my son are off out doing their thing right now. And I'm sitting here alone in my home recording this with you. There is a recharge from that for me. And so being able to recognize that need and think about, okay, how can I have that met? And maybe the hotel night doesn't make sense for you. Maybe you're a solo caregiver, maybe you're whatever, but like, what do you need in order to be able to recharge? And how do we get you even 1% of that? 1% of that. Do you go and sit in the park for 5 minutes and take your shoes off and just put your feet in the grass for 5 minutes at the park on the way home from work? Do you sit in the garage and turn off the radio and just like, just breathe for a minute before you go into the house? How do you take this space for yourself? How do you fill yourself back up? I realized I don't want to work out at home. I want to go to the gym where I can put my headphones in and nobody will, I can't hear anybody else and nobody else talks to me. So it feels like I'm alone because I don't feel like I owe anything to these humans or they owe anything to me or we're going to ask anything of each other. Like I just get to be there. So I started going to the gym instead of working out at home because that, while it's kind of annoying from a time perspective, that feels really good. I get the alone time in the car on the way there, on the way home. I get be disconnected. I'm going to just be here with myself while I work out. So thinking about what do you need in order to be able to intentionally disconnect, intentionally take some time, intentionally refill, instead of being forced to do it when your burnout gets so bad that your brain is like, you can't, or your body is like, you can't, you're done.